Ladies and gentlemen, High Spots fans, I'm sitting here with the Messiah of the Backbreaker, Roderick Strong. Roderick Strong, thank you for being a part of the High Spots interview series.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me.
Well, we'd just like to start off with a kind of a question we start with everybody. What was your first exposure of professional wrestling?
Oh, man, I don't know exactly how old I was when I first watched it. Probably like 3, 4 when I first watched it on television. But I was a huge Hulk Hogan fan, obviously. And, I don't know, I guess that was my first exposure. I mean, my dad didn't really like it at the time, in which we'll get to that, I'm sure, at some point. But they knew, like, the first time I saw it, I was like, this is amazing. Like, everybody that loves professional wrestling, when they first saw it, they're like, holy crap, I can't keep my eyes off of it. So it's something which I think is pretty funny that I fell in love with it at such a young age, and now.
Well, as growing up and being a fan of it, how did you end up becoming involved with it?
Well, at the time, like, it was weird because I was, like, a fan of it, and then I stopped being a fan of it because like, my life was just crazy. Like, my mom was a drug addict at the time. My dad was an alcoholic. So I spent a lot of time by myself, and I was very introverted. So I didn't even watch television, didn't do anything, really. But
was this at a young age?
This was at a young age. Like, I started watching wrestling. So, like I said, probably about 3, I got exposure to it. Maybe a little bit older. But then, probably between, like, 9 to 11, I didn't watch it at all. Mm-hmm. But, funny story, my grandmother was good friends with Hulk Hogan, and he called me on my 8th birthday, which was pretty awesome, because I had an asthma attack and almost was hospitalized that day. So that was like a huge surprise, and it was awesome. But after that, I kind of stopped watching it for a little bit. And then one day, my dad's like, hey, my buddy Ed called me and asked me if I want to be a pro wrestler. And my dad has, like, an amateur background. He played college soccer. I mean, he's always been an athlete his whole life. He's like, so I was like, sure, And he was a single parent at the time. My parents were separated for a while. And he was taking care of me most of the time. And it was kind of weird when we showed up to the house of this mysterious trainer, which they wouldn't tell us, and it ended up being Jim the Anvil Neidhart. It was pretty crazy to me.
Instead of Bob the Butcher, it was Anvil Neidhart.
It's pretty crazy. It's like, holy shit, he has a ring in his backyard, and this guy's like a TV star. I don't know, it just blew my mind.
But where would he have been in his career at this time? Would he been in?
No, he was off TV at the time.
Okay.
Because this was around the time when he came back as Who.
Okay, I don't know why I was thinking
this was probably about a month and a half, 2 months before he came back as Who.
Okay.
Because I just remember when he was like, all right, guys, I'm going back on the road. But he had a guy named Manny that I literally thought he was going to be like The Rock. He kind of actually looked like The Rock. And he was like the best wrestler ever in my brain when I was 12 because he just tore it up at practice all the time. But he's like, man, he's going to be doing a lot of the training now and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, Jim's going back. And his colors were all yellow. So I thought he was going to be like the next Hulk Hogan, but it didn't work out, obviously.
So your dad brought you to all the training?
He did, and I would just sit there and watch, and then one day Jim's like, hey, do you want to get in there? And I was like, sure,
And what age is this?
It's 12.
12.
So, obviously, I'm like literally from this distance, from this seat to the camera, away from the ring, just watching everything all the time. And I'm like, oh my God. He's like, you want to get in here? I was like, fuck yeah, it's like, holy shit, the first thing I did was go stand on the top rope. I was like, the first thing I had to do, I don't know why. And I stood there for like a minute. I was like, this is pretty crazy. And I jumped off, and I had, and after that, I started trying to learn how to bump. I mean, because sitting and watching it, you obviously get a little bit of an understanding.
That was just like, Jim says, like, hey, do this is how you bump, or were you like, hey, did you take the initiative yourself?
No, after he told me I could get in there, man, I just started doing it, because I'm a visual learner, so, man, just watching it, I could do it. But around that time also, Davey Boy, lived probably about like 5 minutes away from him, so he brought over Harry at one point, which was about 10 at the time. Maybe a little bit older, closer to 11. I don't know his exact age. And me and him kind of hit it off, right off the bat because we both love wrestling, and he obviously had been doing it for a while.
He's probably had 300 matches.
That's what I'm saying.
So.
And then, so we clicked as buddies at that time, and we ended up having probably one of the worst matches in history that hopefully you guys will have a chance to see if I can actually find this tape. I almost broke his arm. It was terrible. It was terrible. It was a lot of fun at the time.
Okay, well, did he just hey, guys, get in there, wrestle, or did he hey, here's a few moves, and then...
No, we just, Harry kind of knew his thing. He knew what he did, at the time. He
told you aside, kid, this is what we're going to do?
Oh, we kind of just called something. He was the lead, he was the veteran, he was the 10-year-old veteran of this, Mm-hmm. And we had, a whole little thing going on. And I was the Coyote Kid at the time, that was my name.
Why the Coyote Kid?
I don't know, my dad just called me that, so I went with it. I didn't know until I watched the video, actually, but yeah, Harry kind of put the match together, and I, had some things that I like to do, and he obviously had some things he liked to do, and it was probably 5 minutes of young child wrestling that probably it's terrible, But it was a fun experience.
Okay, well, how do you get from this barn burner of a match with Harry Smith to wrestling on the Florida Indies? How do you get from point A to point B?
Well, it came a time where Jim was getting out of the training. I think he was going back to the WWE at the time, and he was, no one was there to train. So my dad's friend built a ring. He was a welder, so he just built a ring based off the ring that he saw. So we kept training there, and that's what I would do in between football season. My off season would consist of wrestling.
Okay.
And
what sports did you just do in high school?
And in high school, I threw shot put for 1 year. I played football every single year. I was on the tennis team for a minute. I was just trying to hook up with all the chicks I possibly could, and tennis chicks are hot. They're very underrated, I must say. And then I did cheerleading my senior year after football. The second half of the year, I got on a traveling squad because my ex-girlfriend at the time was a cheerleader, so I became friends with some of them, and they needed a man, and obviously...
As a base. And,
yeah. And I needed to look at butts, and that's what I did.
Gladly filled that spot.
Oh, I did.
Now, how do you get... was the training with Jim enough for you to go start a Florida indie career, or did you get some...
No, what was kind of weird is my dad's friend Ed at the time, he randomly met Prince Ikea, Lanny Poffo, all these people would come around and train. So I had a weird mixture of people that would come around and kind of help me. And obviously I'm 12, 13, 14. And by the time I was 15, I actually started wrestling matches on the indies. I actually wrestled Tony Mamaluke before he went to WCW for a short stint. When they were signing everybody up on the indies, for that cruiserweight thing that never happened. I was his last match on the indies before we went there. So I don't know, it was just weird, just a weird mixture of random people that would just come over and train me. And the weird thing also, just based off that, was I progressed a lot faster than my dad and his buddy. I was way better than them, but I was still terrible.
So on the Florida indie circuit, what were some of the places that you wrestled there?
There was SCW was where I wrestled Tony Mamaluke at the time, and then my dad was working for IPW, but I would be his manager and stuff. And that ended up being the place that, once I turned 18 and I took off my mask and all that kind of stuff, because I was a masked wrestler called the Jester. Funny thing is, Matt Seidel's backyard wrestling name was the Jester, and we never even knew that.
Could have a Jester versus Jester.
That's what I'm saying. We did, when we wrestled singles matches.
Internally, you were making
exactly. Exactly. But, Ron Nemi was actually the guy to give me a big break. I mean, because IPW, by the time I got into it, was, super hot. I mean, they were bringing in Christopher Daniels, AJ Styles, like all the guys from Wildside, guys from Jersey All Pro, like.
Yeah, it really was kind of a hotbed for the Florida Indy circuit. Like
It was like
top
perfect,
tier.
man. It was like the only thing going on really in Florida. And it was kind of timing just ended up being right. And, in this business, timing's everything.
Mm-hmm. So, wrestling kind of just down there in Florida. What was like your first road trip? Like, I can only imagine, like, you've probably been wrestling the Florida circuit a little bit. Like, what was the first time you're like, all right, I'm going to go to, like, Georgia to wrestle? Like, where was the next place you went?
Wildside was...
would have been your long road trip.
It was. And the crazy thing was it was me, Cedric Strong at the time, my partner at the time. This guy, Cynic was his name, I believe. And we drove up there. We got there. We did the Friday show, which was before the TV taping. And we got there like 20 minutes before the show was going to start. I was still wrestling in track pants and like this T-shirt that I had just had in my closet. And actually, in this match, I took a head scissors, and the guy ripped my track pants off because they had the snaps all the way down. Mm-hmm. And that was like my first like real experience. So I wrestled this match. I'm embarrassed as can be. My pants get ripped off. And then we drive right back home. So we drive the whole 9 hours or whatever up there, wrestle the match, and I think it's terrible. Then we have to drive the whole way back, and that was my first big experience on the road, like driving anywhere other than like Orlando or whatever.
No, was that just the only time you ever wrestled at Wildside?
No, one other time I went up there, and me and Cedric went up there alone, and we wrestled Sal Renaro and Seth DeLay when they were a team. And we had a pretty good match with those guys. But the crazy part is Cedric decided he was going to drive the whole way up and the whole way back. Well, not, following the code of the road, I fell asleep at one point and woke up as we were going into a ditch, getting ready. There was a rest area, getting ready to hit the rest area sign, but thankfully I woke up Cedric at the right time where he could kind of swerve back onto the road, and we were safe.
Now, what year was this that you were going up there?
2002, I believe it was, that we did that. Yeah, 2002.
Okay, so in that era, that was probably... I think AJ Styles was still around at that time?
He was. Well,
was there any... It seemed like a lot of names came out of there, especially about that time period, the 2000s, the 2002s. Any notable people that you remember from the few experiences that you were there?
I mean, all the regulars at the time. I mean, I kind of don't remember. It was kind of like...
It's all people you've probably seen now.
Yeah, like a million times, and it kind of just all blends together, but...
No first-time meetings and stuff like that.
Rick Michaels, that's the first... Because he said I look like Joey Matthews. That's the only reason I remember it. Like, he was like, you look just like Joey Matthews. And I was like, I don't even know who that is. At the time, I didn't know who it was, and I was like, okay, so I Googled him, and
So were you kind of hip to what was going on with the indie circuit? Because it seems like 2002 was like the beginning of things getting really hot and out there, and companies becoming a big deal. Were you kind of hip to what was going on?
A little bit. I actually became like a little bit more informed when I met Eric Stevens, who I ended up training. Like, I randomly met him because there was an NWA Florida show at the Armory down in Tampa, and it was kind of funny because me and Cedric went to watch, and there was this guy, Doug, that used to train, like, at my house with me and stuff. And then he was with this guy that was just, like, this fat, chubby kid that was just so obnoxious. I was like, I hate this fucking guy. Whoever this guy is, he's just the most annoying fan possible. And then it ended up being Eric Stevens, because then he was like, oh, I got this friend that's going to come over, he's going to start training. And it was him, and I was like, oh my God, I just fucking hate you. You were very annoying. But he was really hip to that kind of stuff, like, because he knew, like, Ruckus and stuff from, like, the backyard wrestling. They used to trade tapes and stuff. So he kind of, like, helped catch me up to a world outside of Florida, which was pretty interesting, actually.
So, when did it come time to, like, all right, I want to get out of Florida and start heading towards the Northeast? Like, what would have been the first company you worked for? Would it have been Jersey All Pro?
Jersey All Pro was actually the first company that I worked for.
How did that all come about?
Ron. We
Ron?
did their Friday show. Me and Cedric went up there and did a tag match, and we did their Friday show. You know, we were kind of lucky because Scoot Andrews was there in IPW at the time, and he was pretty popular in the Northeast, like being from Florida. And there was this guy, Mike Sullivan, which is super underrated talent that if you ever watch some of his matches, like, he was amazing. He just never got, like, the opportunity to be put in a position to really make money, and it's kind of sad, actually. You know, Ron's like, hey, you know, you guys want to go up there? You know, Fat Frank's willing to use you guys if you will. And we're like, of course. You know, this would be an amazing opportunity to branch out, you know, obviously. Now getting a better idea of, like, you can't just, you know, wrestle for the same federation and expect to, you know, end up in the WWE one day. You got to go out there and make a name for yourself. And once kind of understood that, just jumped at every opportunity.
Okay, what were some of the other opportunities? And was Ron kind of the facilitator to a lot of them?
Sort of, because we did, like, the Jeff Peterson Cup, and, like, he brought in Ruckus and Sanjay, and, like, some of those guys got a chance to see me wrestle, and they were like, oh, man, you'd be awesome for this. You know, with wrestling, it's all about networking and just getting an opportunity for someone to see you and, like, see what you bring, you know, to the table and understand your value. So, I mean, Ron did a good job of, like, helping the guys that he really felt like could go beyond just wrestling there every Saturday night and could eventually move on to, you know, make a bigger name for themselves.
Oh, and I'm sure in his eyes also, too, if he says, hey, this kid's good, you go out there, you impress him, that helps that promoter out. And
No, exactly.
Down, so, probably. All right. Now, how did CZW come about? How did you get in with them?
Well, that was from, you know, Ruckus and Sanjay and stuff. They were actually doing, like, this strong style, like, hardcore, like, tournament. And I think at the time I'd built, like, sort of a reputation for being a strong style wrestler, a stiff wrestler. And I don't know, Zandig just called me one day. I was like, hey, we're interested in bringing you in for this tournament. You know, it's like a strong style tournament, but you can use tables, ladders, and chairs and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, okay, whatever, you know. I didn't really care. So, and that was the first time in my life that I had been hit in the jaw as hard as I was. It was pretty crazy. I wrestled Nick Gage in the first round. He ended up beating me, but that was like the first like eye opener to holy shit, this is what people think I do to people. Yeah, it was pretty funny.
What was kind of the locker room like? Because they were pretty hot probably with that.
Man, they were great. They were very like open arms kind of situation, which, you know, obviously being a young guy that hadn't traveled a ton, you know, being brought in for this tournament and like starting to make a name for myself, you never know how people are going to treat you. And everyone was really, really cool.
Okay. What about with Zandig? There's a lot of people.
It was all right. You know, I probably talked to Zandig like 4 times in my whole entire life. He called me to book me, and then after that, he would just call me to book me. And then at the shows, someone else would just tell me what I was going to do. So.
Now, you were a part of the best of the best 4 tournament.
I was.
And actually got into the finals. What were your memories of that tournament in particular?
I had a really good 3-way with B-Boy and Jimmy Rave. I remember that. And I wrestled B-Boy after that, I believe. And then the finals with Sanjay, which actually was like the first major injury of my career, which isn't, I don't know if I would call it that major, but I didn't get surgery on it, but he gave me a tornado DDT off the top, and he hit like feet first, and like the timing of it was off, and like my collarbone went right into his knee, which was extremely painful, but we ended up finishing, you know, obviously the match the way it was. So that's probably the biggest memory of my life, because for 6 months after that, like I could barely use like my right arm, and I couldn't sleep on my right side. I was not a good cuddler. My girlfriend at the time was a little angry about that. So that's like one of my fondest moments, but me and Sanjay had became really good friends by that point, so it was kind of an awesome opportunity to be in there with like one of your good friends, and he obviously came out on top, but an awesome experience overall.
And it seems like you guys have like wrestled each other just about everywhere. You've wrestled each other in Ring of Honor, and TNA, and
Yeah.
PWG, and then everywhere else.
Yep, Jersey All Pro.
I don't think there's indie wrestling promotion where you guys haven't wrestled at some point in time.
You know, that could be true.
In different phases of your career. I mean, still good friends to this day.
Yeah, I mean, we keep in touch. We, you know, like all friendships, you never talk as much as you did at first, but you know, we still respect each other and we chat every once in a while and just make sure everyone's doing good.
Well, how do we get from CZW to Ring of Honor?
You know, by the time that ended up happening, I was already in Ring of Honor.
Okay, yes, it was all. It was like you did. I think you debuted in CZW, and then next week you're in Ring of Honor. It would have been March.
It was something like. See, I had a pre-show match in September 20th, 2003.
Okay.
I was actually talking about this story because Cedric had gotten picked for the Super 8 like that year. This was earlier in 2003. And I kind of just became determined, like, I mean, because that broke my heart because Kettner, like, I was told, like, oh, you're going to be shoo-in, you know, obviously. And then he's like, well, I can't put both of you guys in, so he picked Cedric. So I was, like, heartbroken, obviously, because, I mean, the Super 8 had such a reputation, and I really wanted to branch out. And we had just split, like, as a team in IPW, and I really wanted to just kind of focus on just doing my own thing. And then when that happened, I was like, by the end of the year, if I don't make it to Ring of Honor, because obviously Ring of Honor was becoming a huge thing, and that, to me, was the first goal I put on the plate, like, once I realized what was out there. And I was like, I'm going to, you know, maybe I'm going to step away from wrestling. Maybe it's not, you know, for me. I'm a perfectionist, and I like to be the best at what I do, and, you know, the not getting in the Super 8 kind of was like a kick in the nuts, you know, like, oh shit, you know, wake up, you know, maybe you need to step your game up. So, I mean, and I ran into Dan Moff at an MLW show, and I wrestled on it, and just wrestled around and stuff before the show. And the crazy thing is, he said I reminded him of Russ Haas, which I'd never met Russ before, but Dan was like, oh, you kind of remind me of him, and me and Dan, you know, had seen each other before at Jersey All Pro and stuff. And we kind of clicked, like, as buds, and I was like, he's like, you need to bring a Ring of Honor, like, your style would be perfect. And I'm like, okay, you know, that'd be a great opportunity, you know. And it was pretty funny because the day I was talking about that is the day that he instant messaged me and was like, if you can make it to Philly September 20th, we've got a spot for you in a pre-show match. I was like, holy crap, you know, I went and jumped on the couch. I was like, holy shit, a dream's coming true already. And, you know, I got myself up there and had an opportunity to be in the ring with, you know, Jimmy Jacobs, Alex Shelley, and Josh Daniels. I mean, 3 amazing wrestlers, so couldn't have been a better opportunity for the first time being there.
So that was your pre-show match?
That was. And then
it's quite a list of talent there for a pre-show match.
It's amazing, you know. And at the time, like, I was obviously the most unknown person in the match. So, I mean, those guys did a great job of just giving me an opportunity to get myself over in that position. So, I mean, it was awesome of all 3 of them. And then from there, you know, Gabe was like, I'll stay in touch with you, you know, if we have anything, I'll let you know. And then I ended up doing a do or die match against Jay Lethal at the Rexplex. And then after that, it was another, hey, if we have something for you, we'll contact you, so on and so forth. And then maybe a month and a half later, he's like, I have this idea, Generation Next, it's going to be these young guys, blah, 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 they're going to take over the company kind of thing. You know, we're going to take these spots, not earn them. And then, you know, that ended up being like a huge success. And, you know, I can't thank Gabe enough for just, you know, having the faith in me and obviously the other guys as well. You know, to be put in such a huge position in such a important company, you know.
Yeah, and what, did you already kind of know everybody else in Generation Next? Like, did you have any interaction before with Jack or Shelley or?
Yeah, I mean, I wrestled Shelley the one time, so we kind of stayed in touch.
Mm-hmm.
Austin, no. I met him at the Do or Die show at the Rexplex. We said hello to each other, and I'd met Jack before, but I mean that's it. They were like, okay, you guys are gonna be a group. We're kind of like, okay, we'll make the best of this. You never know exactly how you're gonna click, but
Especially like I don't think it's Jack, but you seem like a very straight-laced, dedicated person. I don't know if I know Jack well enough, but from what I see, I don't know if I would say that about him.
Jack.
Or do I have a wrong impression of him?
Jack does his thing, man. He loves to drink coffee and loves to smoke cigarettes, and he kind of just does his thing. I mean, I'm not a judgmental person, so as long as he can go out there, and perform like he needs to perform.
Because it seems like you guys teamed together quite a bit.
We ended up having a great chemistry. Like, I didn't think it was gonna.
When looking back on the results, there was a lot of you and Jack, and maybe not so much you and Austin or you and Shelley. There was a lot of you and Jack, you and Jack, you and Jack.
Yeah.
People.
And then me and Austin ended up being the tag champs. So.
Well, what do you think was a big, maybe not turning point, but some of the highlights of your time with that group?
Oh man, the first night. I mean, we had a 45-minute match against the Briscoes, John Walters and Jimmy Rave. I mean, in a tent, when people think it's like doom or gloom for this company, and we're given as much time as we want to go out there and just show Ring of Honor and show the wrestling world exactly what we got. I mean, that's the best moment ever to me. Just the fact that everyone just put their heads together and just fucking tore it up. It was crazy. I couldn't have a better feeling. That's like the greatest memory of my career in Ring of Honor. Even over winning, the world championship and the TV title and the tag championships. Like, that was like, I just fulfilled a dream and did it at like the highest level. Like, it wasn't just like I wrestled for Ring of Honor. It was like, I'm a fucking top guy here now. And Gabe gave us this opportunity, and we fucking stole the show, and it was awesome.
Did Gabe give you a lot of direction on what he wanted with some of the promos and what he wanted?
Man, they didn't really do anything with me at first, and that was probably, one of the worst things that happened to me, because I just got in this position where I never cut promos in my whole entire career, because to me it was just about being an athlete and being a great wrestler, like. And I just didn't have to do that, because obviously the main focus was a little bit more on Austin and Alex Shelley, like being the mouthpieces of the group, and kind of me and Jack just doing our thing, and and eventually, he had a lot of input when I started doing promos, but I mean, I rarely ever cut them, And if you look at some old ones, the funny thing that I know people would always say to me is I would mouth the words that everyone was saying. Which is funny because I never had an idea what they were saying. I just was nervous because I had never been in front of a camera. I'd never been put in that position. Like, hey, can you stand here for 3 minutes while these guys talk? And you have absolutely nothing to say. Like, can you figure out what to do? So I just do this, and then I get nervous, and then anticipation of what they'd say next.
2005 seemed to be a pretty breakout year for you. You got to wrestle a lot of big matches against a lot of bigger names in the independent scene and stuff like that. But I believe it started off, you were wrestling Shelley at that point. Wasn't he kind of doing a turn away from Generation Next towards the Embassy? I believe was in
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. What's funny is the thing that kind of like launched that was I wrestled Kurt Angle in like an Angle challenge on SmackDown.
Yes, I was going to ask about that in a little bit.
It kind of was like the first thing to like propel me a little bit, because after that Gabe gave me a little bit of mic time, and I had a feud with Steve Corino, who it was like a mini feud, but I mean it was an opportunity to wrestle with someone that is severely underrated. Steve's an awesome wrestler and can tell a great story, and I got a chance to. He was like the first guy in the beginning of that 2005 that, helped me like take that next step and like understand wrestling a little bit more than just doing the moves and trying to learn the storytelling and so on and so forth.
Now, did Ring of Honor have a problem with you wrestling that angle challenge, like being on TV?
No, not at all.
They're just-
Not
they're
at the time.
Just
No.
happy for the exposure. Just
Of
happy
course.
he was one of their guys.
Of course.
Okay. Also, in 2005, you had a match with CM Punk, where he was kind of on his way out of the company at that time. He, after the match, put you over on, I believe, on the microphone, saying that you're the future of this company and stuff like that. How did that make you feel? Do you know he was going to do something like that, or was that like a big deal for you?
Oh man, it was a huge deal. I mean,
Because
Punk.
he was the guy at the time.
Yeah, Punk's one of those guys that people think, Punk's an asshole, Punk's this, Punk's that. Punk has a huge heart, and he obviously was a huge influence on me when I was in, when he was in Ring of Honor with me, and even FIP, because, I got to see him a lot, and he was very helpful, and I had no idea he was going to say that about me, but I knew, like, when we went out there, we had something to prove, obviously, and, I just was thankful for the opportunity to go in there and have someone in that position willing enough to do whatever it took to make me look as good as I possibly could. So,
because that's a pretty important spot for somebody who's going to be moving on, and everybody knows that you want to feed them as good a people as they had, and you happen to be one of those people.
No, exactly, and it's still amazing. I still remember that. I was sitting on the mat against the ropes when he cut that promo, so it was awesome.
And then you also you got to wrestle Matt Hardy, one of those things where they put a lot of money to pay for him to come in, and they put a lot of trust in you for you to wrestle him on a Ring of Honor show.
They did.
What was that like?
Matt was awesome. I didn't know what to expect. I mean, because I at that time really had never wrestled anybody that had came from the WWE or had wrestled for WCW back in the day. So I didn't know like how he was going to treat me because he didn't know much of me. I don't think, but I mean, he was awesome to work with, and he was willing to do anything to get me over, and he obviously knew he was going to be over, so, I mean, that was another thing that I was super thankful for, just to have the opportunity, and I thought it turned out all right.
I believe sometime at this time, Matt Seidel joined Generation Next, or he became a part of that?
He did in 2005, yeah.
Okay, how was what was your impressions of Matt?
Man, awesome high flyer, obviously, but, I mean, we're all young. I had no real impression. I just knew he was a very talented, athletic guy, and I figured he'd fit right in, because he just wanted to earn respect just like the rest of us.
So kind of a perfect fit to the whole group.
Of course, young and hungry.
Very seamlessly to what you guys were doing.
Yep.
Also, I think about this time, James Gibson was a big part of Ring of Honor. Now, he was... I've heard you speak very highly of him being a big part of your career. Can you just kind of share your feelings and thoughts on him?
What's funny is he actually wrestled for IPW back in the day before he went to WCW. Or maybe it was after WCW, whatever. He wrestled as Jamie Howard. And I just remember they're like, you remind me of Jamie Howard, my wrestling. I'm like, okay, I have no idea who this guy is, but... And then eventually, I found out who it was, and, I started watching him wrestle and stuff. I'm like, that's awesome that people think that much of me. And then when I actually got a chance to meet him, and it was funny because on commentary at Border Wars, Nigel talked about people you meet, but you have like a perception of them before you meet them, and how usually it tends to be a letdown, like how these people are. But when I met him, like we were so much alike. I mean, he's a country boy. I'm not as much as him, but he loves to have a good time. He loves wrestling. He's super passionate about it, and so am I. So, like, the minute we met, we, like, clicked, and it was awesome. I mean, and then for some reason, he took a huge liking to me. So the whole time he was in Ring of Honor, I mean, we traveled together. We, hung out together after the shows and stuff, and he was always trying to just help me and make me better. And, I mean, he didn't have to do it, and he could have just been worried about himself, but that's the kind of guy he is, and that's how much he loves professional wrestling just in general.
So a lot of these Ring of Honor trips, they're usually, double shots or whatever, so you mostly changed with James Gibson, Jamie Noble. Were there any other people you travel with, room with, at this period in time?
BJ Whitmer, I mean, kind of everybody. I mean, it was a weird part. It was a weird time in the company. Not everyone, we just were getting hotel rooms, so just stay with whomever, But, I mean, travel-wise, Just whoever I could get a ride with to get to the next show.
Also, in '05, you wrestled Bryan Danielson for almost a full hour in November. Do you any recollections of that match, getting wrestle American Dragon, being how it seems like he was at the company from the very beginning, and now you're wrestling against one of the top guys.
Was that because that wasn't Supercard of Honor?
Name of that show, but it's late '05. You wrestled him.
Yeah, because I think I wrestled him. Supercard of Honor was the WrestleMania weekend ones when I wrestled him again. Because that match I think was like 40 some odd minutes. Yeah,
something like really
we had a match prior to that, which was our first match ever, and that was like 30 some odd minutes. I don't really remember that. I mean, it was just, I don't know, it was kind of a surreal thing. It was kind of like the whole year was building to this, me and him, and it was like the most nerve-wracking thing that could have ever happened to me. And the crazy thing with our first match ever is I actually got hurt like early on, and I had to wrestle like the next 35 minutes, or 30 minutes hurt. For some reason, like my arm, it was like a slight like pec tear or strain or something. Like it's gonna hurt like real early. He was chopping me up in the corner, and then like just my pecs swole up, and I was like, oh my god. But you have to keep going. Brian, being the professional he is, man, he made me look like $1 million. And I mean, between him and Punk, I mean, they really like put me on like the next level. They did everything they possibly could. And obviously when you get those opportunities, if you're not good enough, no matter how hard someone tries to elevate you, you won't be elevated if you're not good enough, So obviously confidence-wise, I was very confident I could do it, but I mean, I can't thank those guys enough.
Well, I mean, we've just mentioned some big names here in CM Punk and Daniel Bryan and Evan Bourne is now as they're called. Are you surprised by their success at all? And whether
Not at all. Not at all. Just hanging around them, and just I consider myself to be in their league in a sense of, opportunity, and those guys, make the most of it. You give them an opportunity, they're going to make the most of it. And so I'm not shocked at all. I think it's kind of funny people thought like Brian would never be successful on that level when, I mean, he's universal, man. He's a smart guy and he knows what to do, and he's in touch with what's going on. I mean, Punk's the same way. And Matt, I mean, Evan Bourne, I mean, he's one of the best high flyers in the world, so obviously, being put on that stage, he's going to shine.
Okay, kind of backing up a little bit, but kind of continuing on with what you're saying about going to the next level. NWA TNA. I've got down on here you had an explosion match against CM Punk and Julio De Niro. I believe that might have been one of your first appearances with them in '03.
Oh yeah.
How did that kind of come about to you getting in with?
That was just I think Bill hooked it up with like Ron, talked to Bill and just created the opportunity to go up there and do that. I mean, at that point in time, that was like a huge deal to go up there and do that.
That was in Nashville. I mean,
was in Nashville.
They hadn't come down to.
Nope, not yet. We went up there. We went up there twice, and did some stuff, and it was pretty crazy. I don't know. It was cool. It was a really short match, a little job match because those guys were obviously getting a push at the time. So.
And then. Was it when they moved to Florida that you started to get a few more?
I was still going around just doing the jobber work, enhancement work for him because Bill was helping me out with that at the time, and
so just with those two Wildside bookings, Bill seemed to take a liking to you.
Actually at first he did not, and then he did not like me.
But why do you think that is?
He just thought I came off as cocky, spoiled young child, I guess. Which I was a young child, and I didn't really probably know how to handle myself. So he's pretty right, I'm sure. And, after that, like, it was probably about a year after, I went up there. I ran into him again, and I matured a little bit, like, physically. And just in the business and learning the right things to do. And I think he kind of saw that I progressed just as a person, and was like, okay, now I'm willing to take a little bit of a liking to this guy. He's talented, but he's kind of a douchebag before. So
Well, how did it come about? It seems like at one point in time it was almost like they had Generation Next in TNA. How did that all kind of come about?
it was weird. Obviously Shelley ended up being there before me and Austin ended up going, but they were doing the internet thing. They did a poll of like the top indie guys that people wanted to see on the pay-per-view, and Austin Aries won. He wrestled Christopher Daniels at a pay-per-view, and he had like a really great showing. And then he was supposed to wrestle Shocker, I think was his name. The Mexican guy. I don't know. Shocker, I think was his name.
Shocker or Hector Garza, I think was.
Not Hector Garza.
Okay.
Not Hector Garza.
Those were the two that I think.
Hector Garza, one time when I was doing a job there in Orlando, he did like his corkscrew moonsault finish and landed right on my face and knocked me out. That was like the first time I'd ever been like knocked out so crazy like that. It was unreal. But yeah, Shocker couldn't get into the country or something. And they called me because obviously they had my contact information from the month before with the pay-per-view and all that kind of stuff. And they're like, hey, can you come make this pay-per-view? I was like, sure, obviously. And me and Austin had our match and kind of tore it up, and then they signed us like right after that. And I don't know, I think it's a natural progression. Like, we're three talented young guys. Why not, kind of go along the same lines? It wasn't the exact same thing, but it was the exact, it was sort of the same lines of us being talented, and we're going to take our spots in this X division. We're going to be stars here. You're not going to take your time to make us stars. We're going to make ourselves stars.
Now, from there, you had Ring of Honor and TNA still had an okay working relationship at that time, but there was no issues or conflicts, between the two whatsoever. But I believe in February of '06, there was a snowstorm that was coming through.
Yeah.
And I actually remember being at a Hermie Sadler show where they actually canceled the next date to get everybody down for the pay-per-view, the Against All Odds pay-per-view.
Yeah.
But Ring of Honor had a show that night as well, before the pay-per-view. And I believe you and Austin stayed, but you still made the pay-per-view. What was the story?
The thing was, they called us and they wanted us to leave early because obviously the storm was coming in. But, I'm a loyal person, and I was trying to be loyal to both companies. And that's something that I've kind of said, all along. And I even said that to them. Like, Ring of Honor gave me an opportunity to make a name for myself. And TNA wouldn't have known who I was if it wasn't for Ring of Honor letting me have that opportunity. So, but obviously TNA's going to make me a bigger name because there's a lot more exposure. So I'm trying to just make everybody happy, which at the end of the day, you realize you can not do that. And me and Austin, stuck to our guns because this show I was supposed to wrestle Loki. And he quit the company like 2 weeks before it. And that was supposed to be the main event, and that was, supposed to be a big match for the card. And this was also the same show that CM Punk ended up doing, and ended up getting in trouble because he was in OVW at the time. And so those guys went. Me and Austin, fulfilled our booking with the Ring of Honor, and then we drove in the snow that was crazy. I still remember it just did downpour. It took us forever. Maybe 8 hours to get from or 6 hours, some crazy amount of time to get to the airport. We ended up going to the Philly airport from Long Island and sat there, eventually got on the plane, and then we sat on the plane for 2 hours or something. We ended up getting to Orlando at about 4 o'clock, and we made the pay-per-view. We weren't an advertised match, but we had a tag match against the Naturals, I believe. And I don't know, it was pretty surreal, the whole thing.
But you got there at 4. What was the call time?
1.
Okay, so you were only 3 hours late, but even still getting in there.
Yeah, but that's 3. First they ask you to leave, and you say no, and then the call time's 1, and you get there at 4. A lot of factors, obviously.
Yeah. And of course, it's a pay-per-view. There's a lot more money behind it, and
exactly,
it's a nice working relationship. But they probably see Ring of Honor as, lesser of a product.
Exactly.
So, So from there, what what
You
is
know,
your
we
position in the company?
we went and we did the pay-per-view. Then the next day at TV, Terry Taylor was like, "Hey, we gotta suspend you guys. Just kind of, we have to let everyone know that you can't, do this kind of stuff to us." Which I understand where they were coming from, and I went and apologized to everybody because I wasn't trying to make anybody unhappy. Like I said, I'm trying to be a people pleaser here. I love Ring of Honor. I loved working for TNA. Like I just didn't want to make anybody mad, but I ended up making like everybody mad, and that's usually how that works. They're like, we're going to suspend you for 2 months. But the good thing was they put me on TV every week. They just had everyone whoop my ass, which was fine, but I had a good paycheck at the end of it. But, it was kind of like a lesson learned of the sort of, you can't make everybody happy, especially in this business. It's just not gonna work that way. And then they ended up bringing me back like a little bit early because they were doing like qualifiers for the what is that cup? What was that cup?
World Cup.
Yeah, they were doing qualifiers, so they needed me. It was like me, Shannon Moore, and some Jay Lethal maybe did a 3-way. And I lost there, and then we talked about, they're like, we want to re-sign you for, a new contract before we actually put you back on TV. And at that time, like, I just didn't feel like with the whole suspension thing and, just looking at what was going on at the time, like, I didn't feel I was progressing enough, like, as a performer, other than just being a good wrestler. And, I actually asked them to release me because I just was afraid that, something would happen and interfere with my Japan bookings because I just started going to Japan at the end of 2005 and in 2006. So I just didn't know what was going to happen. I'd never been in that position before, so I was like, "Oh, release me," and they're like, "No." And I was like, "I won't resign this deal because it's not a better deal for me." And I didn't think the situation at the time was right for me to stay there. I felt I need to continue to travel the world to learn how to become a better performer because when I come back, and if I do come back, I want my value to be here and not just here, and I needed to do that for myself, and it was a tough decision because I loved working there, and like a lot of the people I worked with were my friends there, and the office was always really good to me. Obviously, other than the time that they had to suspend me, kind of teach us a lesson, but I asked, and then eventually they were just like, just sit out the rest of your contract, and we won't mess with you. And if we're going to bring you back, we'll call you at least a couple weeks in advance, kind of give you an idea of what's going to happen. Obviously, that didn't happen, so. I left on good terms, though.
And any other thoughts of ever going back or anything?
Yeah, of course I would go back. This is a business at the end of the day, and the more money you can make, the better off it is. I still love wrestling, and I do it for fun, but it's a business. I got to pay bills. I got to eat, all that kind of stuff.
In September of 2004, a group called Full Impact Pro started up in Florida. It was kind of like the sister promotion of Ring of Honor. You living in Florida, I'm sure that it was nice to be able to work some of these Ring of Honor guys kind of in your backyard. What are your earliest memories of Full Impact Pro?
I just remember the first show was at like the side arena connected to the Sun Dome. I originally thought it was the Sun Dome. I was like, holy shit, this is going to be crazy. But it ended up being obviously the smaller attachment to the Sun Dome, which, drew like maybe 50 people, maybe 75 people. But I thought it was awesome. Gabe's like, this is a great opportunity for you to just progress like as a wrestler because obviously we're doing Generation Next at the time. So it was just an opportunity to, like you said, work Ring of Honor guys, but in a little bit more relaxed setting and just prepare myself to go to that next level against them, in front of a Ring of Honor crowd.
Because it was like a different crowd. It was almost like the kind of a... I was trying to think of a good word to really describe it, but it seemed like a very... Not like very smart marketing.
Well, it's weird because I think their expectations at first were like a real Southern style crowd, which it didn't end up being. It ended up being like very casual fan crowd mixed with the handful of guys that paid attention all the time on the internet and so on and so forth. So it was kind of weird, like, dynamic that it had. And, at first it was rough, but, I can't, Sal, like, really stuck it through, and it ended up being, like, kind of a big deal. We did really well for, handful of years.
And did it ever seem like it was like the test area for Ring of Honor? Like they would try
I think
stuff?
so, yeah.
Like we think we should put the belt on this guy. Let's give him the FIP belt and see how it goes.
I think to a point, maybe. I mean, I think it was more of a match thing, and I always think it's funny, like, I'll give guys a hard time that would come down and they'd be like, oh, man, it's the FIP weekend, we'll just hang out and have fun. Because it was, like I was saying, a more relaxed Ring of Honor, so these guys could go out there and, have fun, work on what I think is funny now, like, the character aspect, the storyline aspect of, like, interacting with the people a lot more and, drawing the attention to the match that way instead of doing it like a Ring of Honor match where it's all athletically based and the people just are buying into the story of the battle. Mm-hmm. And it kind of sucked for me because I was always in the position that Gabe was like, go have a good ROH-style match out there tonight. And I'm like, shit, all my friends get to come and they get to have fun matches and I have to go wrestle a Ring of Honor-style match for 30 minutes. And I'm like, damn it, man. But I mean, that's another thing I ended up priding myself on is the fact that I love, I love to train hard. I love to work hard. Like, it's always a test to go out there and just, get better. So, I joke about it a lot. Like, even to this day about how I was always like, go have a Ring of Honor style match out here. But, I mean, I like the fact that I knew when I showed up, like, I had to come to work.
Well, and one night you got to wrestle Joe, and it's for my notes, whatever, it said standing ovation. So I'm guessing it was a good match that you had at FIP again. So
yeah, it's funny. There was not many people there, though.
Well, the 17 that were there.
That's what I'm saying. They loved it, and that was the first time ever wrestling Joe, and it was awesome. I mean, Joe's one of my good buds, so. I mean, just that experience alone, especially at that time, because, I mean, his popularity was out of control.
That was 05, probably had that nice aura around him.
Oh, yeah, and then we could, I'd wrestled him, like, one time before that. But it was just awesome to, like, get into the ring with him and just understand, like, learn and just see what, will take you to the next level. So
kind of like what FIP was probably for. Is
yes.
So instead of putting you out there instead of putting you out in the Manhattan Center against Joe, you were wrestling him in Lakeland, Florida, or wherever it may have been.
That ended up being in Tampa, actually, I think.
I was just throwing random.
No, I know, but I'm trying to remember. But I think it was literally at the place where Homicide and Punk had the strip club match. Because we wrestled on the backside of a strip club at the time. So I do remember that match.
Okay. Another match you had, you got to wrestle Bryan Danielson, and you got to beat, that's who you beat for
the FIP.
The FIP title.
I did.
And stuff like that. And then that started a feud with you and Davey down there, which that's 06, 07.
Yeah.
Predates probably anything else you kind of had done with him, even Ring of Honor.
Yeah, it does. Does actually.
What were your early memories working with Davey? Because he was right at the very beginning of his popularity at that time.
It was. It was what it was. I mean, me and Davey have that weird relationship. I always say, to a point where like the Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels of this era, of the sense that we always have good matches, but we're not friends. We've never been friends. And then actually after all that, we were in the No Remorse Corps and Ring of Honor together. But it was just kind of funny, like, just wrestling him and, it's just, I don't know, it's kind of funny. And that I think FIP was a good warm-up for us. Because we ended up having some really, to me, classic matches in Ring of Honor.
Were they classic right off the bat with him in FIP? Or
we always had a good chemistry. I mean, they weren't. I don't think people would consider them the best matches ever, but we always had a good chemistry because we're two competitive people and we both work very hard. We whatever we do in our lives is what we do in our lives, but when we show up at the arena, it's game time. We push each other, and that is one thing I can say I love about Davey is the competitive nature and just when you're going in there, he's going to challenge you. And I love being challenged. I'm a super competitive person, so I always get a little bit excited, when I know that I got a challenge on my hands.
Also, another person, it seems like you wrestled quite a bit in FIP, was Eric Stevens, who we mentioned earlier before. And it seems like his time in FIP, and even probably by the time you wrestled him, he kind of went through almost a transformation and got better a little bit.
Yeah, man, it was one of those things which I think is kind of funny, is that I think it was around the time that I wrestled Joe at this strip club. In the backside of that strip club, that Eric had a match. I got him a match, and Gabe really wasn't a fan of him. He was just he needs to drop weight and so on and so forth. And I mean, that was one of the things at the time, that me and Eric always had in common because we were fat kids and all this kind of stuff. And then training him, and then after that, he kind of got an understanding of what he needed to do, and he did step it up and accepted the challenge of Gabe to get better, and then they ended up giving it an opportunity, and obviously it caught on very well, in FIP, and when I was the champ, they're like, let's do this between you guys, and I was like, of course. I mean, because me and him were really good friends at the time, so you have your best matches with your friends. I mean, obviously you throw a little, you throw some of the rules out the window, and you kind of just go a little bit more at each other, and you kind of push each other, and you hit each other just a little bit harder and see, how tough are you really? And, he was a very creative guy, and so was I, and those matches were and still are some of my favorite matches ever. I mean, to me, and some people may say it's not true, but that was when FIP was doing the best. When me and Eric were feuding, people wanted to see us wrestle because they knew they were going to get fucking slobber knocker stole from JR. They were gonna get one.
Well, what year was this be? The 08?
Was that 08?
I'm just throwing
08?
Roughly.
That was about 08. Yeah, about 08, 09, around those times. Yeah.
Okay. I was just stabbing the dark.
No. I'm trying to think because I remember I wrestled him in the Fight Without Honor. I think about 08 maybe. So it was 07, 08, 09. It kind of trailed for a long time. Mm-hmm. But I just remember because Jay Briscoe got married around that time for a Fight Without Honor, so I was trying to remember.
Now, also another group that was kind of like a stepping, maybe not a stepping stone, but kind of a proving ground for people was IW Mid-South. A lot of places, there wasn't a lot of pressure there because there was a lot of these smaller shows in Indiana, and but they got exposure though.
But to me, that was the most pressure ever because of the exposure, and knowing that people kind of kept an eye on them. They didn't have the best houses. They didn't,
But a lot of people saw their tapes.
Exactly, and I was every opportunity has to be a breakout performance, and that it was pretty nerve-wracking, honestly, at first.
Now, was your debut the TPI 04, or did you do
I don't think so.
I think it was a little shot, a little tag match you did before. I think Nigel might have been involved with that one.
I think so. A four-way.
Yeah, four-way, yes.
I did do a four-way, because then, later, I know, the main event of that was, AJ and Daniels and...
Or maybe, a seven-way scramble or whatever.
I don't know, whatever. I did some mixture. Yeah, but then I wrestled... Because I wrestled Joe in the first round.
Yes.
And, that's another one. I know it kind of seems straight, but Joe, really did a lot for me that match. And that's when I kind of learned, holy shit, this guy is really helping, make me, And I didn't know why he didn't have to do it, like I've said for other people, but he just did, and that's the type of guy Joe is. And I think Punk was on commentary with Dave Prazak during that match. That kind of helped, too. The whole retarded strength stuff, so...
And you got brought in a couple of times. You got to wrestle Eric Cannon for the belt, I believe.
And I did a bunch of TPIs. I did a few of those.
I think he did some tag stuff with Shelly and stuff like that.
I did some random stuff, yeah. But the one TPI when Loki, and Eric Cannon were in a 3-way for the final.
It would have been '06, I believe.
I believe so, yeah.
So, what was that? What was the '06 TPI like?
It was awesome. Like, the crowd was hot. Eric was actually in that one. I remember that. He wrestled Trick Davis. And, man, it was awesome. It was just, man, that finals match was such a battle. Like, really such a battle. And the crazy part is, like, I don't know, that is probably one of the first times I've ever been his hard. Low-key, like, kicked the shit out of me. And it was kind of like my, hello, this is Low-key. And the funny thing, though, from that is, you know, I don't know, I felt like he got a little bit more respect for me. And we got along a little bit better personally after that, you know, because, you know, things happen in wrestling, and, you know, people catch each other and they, you know, hit each other a little bit harder than they intend to. And that was something that was unintentional. Like, there's a spot in there he kicks me in the face, like when he beats me, which was unintentional. But, I mean, it fucking kind of rocked my world, and I was like, holy fuck, what is this shit? Like, and the fact, like, that I feel really helped our relationship, you know, because Loki at the time had that aura about him of being a jerk, but he's really not, and I think it's kind of funny, like, even to this day, like, you know, I'll talk to him, and I'm trying to go train with him and Josh Rafferty up at the Gracie School in Tampa, you know. It's kind of just funny, but it was like we had no relationship until then, and it's just weird how things happen in wrestling, and then you're like, holy shit, like, we get along and we understand, you know, we understand each other, but you shouldn't kick me in the fucking face so hard, you know.
How was Ian Rotten to work for?
You know, Ian was great, man. Like, a lot of people complain about him, and I'll never really complain about him at all. Like, Ian was always good to me, and he was good to, a few people, like, constantly, but, you know, he fucked over a lot of people, too, but he was always great to me, man. Like, and Ian gave me opportunities. He's one person that he'll say, you know, you gotta thank me for all the things I've done for you, for people. He's a guy that really, you know, wants those, you know, pats on the back, but I mean, he really deserves them. Like, he, for the most part, like, really gave guys opportunities to break out, like, and just have matches with people that people really wanted to see, especially when they're hot. Like, he wasn't fucking around. Like, if someone was hot, bang, he put a match together where people wanted to see it. So, I mean, Ian did, you know, some fucked up things, but at the end of the day, I think his intentions were good. But, you know, saw how that worked out.
Well, and also, like, I was going through some of the listings of some of the people he wrestled for IW Mid-South, and some of them kind of, you know, it's so obvious no-brainers, you versus Joe, you versus Key, you know, you versus Hero, but, like, I've got some real random ones, like, you versus, like, Toby Klein and Cash Flow and Necro. Now, it always seemed like IW Mid-South was, like, there's the hardcore wrestlers and there's the real wrestlers, and those points will never meet. But it seems like you get to wrestle some of his hardcore guys, and what was that like?
I loved it, actually. Like, Toby Klein was really good. Like, my expectations were bottom of the barrel for that, honestly. And not like I at the time was the best wrestler ever, and I'm still not. But I was like, holy shit, I don't know what to expect. But he was awesome to work with, man. He was great. I think a lot of those guys get super pigeonholed. I mean, obviously you've seen it in your career. They just get so pigeonholed, man. But they can go out there and do some good stuff. And I had a great time. And that was one of the things I loved about it, because I didn't have to be the same wrestler there that I was everywhere else. And that, you know, like everything is learning your craft, like learning how to adapt to these people. So, you know, like me and Necro did a couple things that I usually wouldn't have done at that time. And, like, me and Toby didn't do anything like that. But, you know, you just learn to adapt with these guys and, you know, understand people's weaknesses and how your strength can cover them up and how some of their strengths can cover up your weaknesses. And I don't know, I thought it was a great opportunity.
Any matches that stick out from out of the Mid-South that we haven't already discussed?
Man, I had this 6-way with Petey Williams, Nate Webb, which I love Nate Webb. I mean, holy shit, anyone that watched IWA Mid-South or CZW, I mean, that man,
Teenage Dirtbag.
that's what I'm saying. Man, he was just so much fun. I love that guy. We've had some good times together, and I loved it because he looked terrible. He looks terrible, but he's so awesome. Like our best match ever, we did for the midgets in Orlando at a bar show. They did like a steel cage midget match, and me and him did just a regular match. It was like our match, then their big steel cage main event. And I loved it. Like, that was the most reaction. Like, people were so into it. And, I mean, he's just fucking, I don't know. He was a super underrated guy. I just know he almost died in our match that we had. So he did, like, a double moonsault to the floor. But, like, overshot everybody and went right into the chairs. But he was fine. I mean, he's great. I mean, that's a good one. I mean, I liked wrestling Eric Cannon. I mean, at the time, who else did I wrestle there me, Elgin, and Eddie Kingston had a 3-way there once. That was weird. Just because Elgin was like just getting to that point, and I didn't know Eddie that well. And then we were all just, it was weird. It was fun, but it was just beat the shit out of each other. Like, 'cause we didn't know each other, very well. Another match that's alright. That's probably, I mean, that's about it that I can really remember. I mean, there was a bunch of like little random ones, but they don't stick out to me. So.
Okay. Also, another promotion that it seems like help build guys was PWG.
Yeah.
Out of the West Coast. It seems like, you have a good match PWG, people start to know it. And kind of in the same sense that the crowds may not be monstrous, but everybody's watching their tapes.
Yeah.
How did you end up getting out to PWG? Who opened that door for you?
I think it was just a matter of just making a name
They
for
knew
myself.
Who you were,
Yeah, and they're another company that, will get people while they're hot, and they really put them in different matchups that, just make people want to watch. I mean, I went out there. I forgot there was somebody though that really helped me out and get in touch with, the guys there. But I ended up getting the opportunity to go out there, and I wrestled Ricky Reyes in my first match. And that was awesome. Ricky's a great talent, man. He's a super underrated talent as well. And I don't know, it was awesome. And then it was a little bit like after that I actually came back, because I was like, I got a little bit of a taste of it because, they had everybody on their shows, and I was like, holy shit, I need to be a part of that. But I mean, it took a while to get back, but I did.
I think probably some of the best pro wrestling I've ever seen live was Bola 06, which you were a part of. What were your memories of Battle of Los Angeles 2006?
Man, I wonder who I wrestled there.
I believe it was Rocky Romero, Dragon Kid, and then you also had a match with Davey.
Oh yeah. Man, it was awesome. It's weird because there's like some weird epic moments of my life. Like, we had a match in 2005, I believe. Like, me and Jack versus Super Dragon and Davey.
Yeah, that'd be alright.
And that was like a turning point in my career based on the fact that I did FIP the night before, and I wrestled BJ Whitmer. And I had actually tore my calf muscle. And I didn't know what was wrong with me at the time, which ended up being like a grade 2. So it wasn't like I didn't need surgery, but my leg like swelled up, and I was having all these issues. And this guy named Jubbs, that's a fan. I mean, he's pretty popular in a sense of like on the boards, I guess. His dad's like a foot doctor, so I went to him. Like, he took me to him and stuff, and he's like, you gotta wrap your leg up like a cast, and that's the only way, because with the calf injury, you're gonna have a lot of pressure on your Achilles tendon, and I could probably tear my Achilles tendon based on the fact that my leg was so weak. So it just kind of like that was like an epic, challenging moment of my career. Like, and it's kind of funny to talk about PWG because it's like it's a fun company that has great intense, fans. But like really, as a performer, like that changed me. Like it was either like I could wrestle and tear my Achilles tendon for X amount of dollars in front of these little people in the Jewish center, and it ended up being like one of the best tag matches of my career. I just think it's kind of crazy. And like Bullet was another event that was like epic for me to wrestle those guys, and wrestle Davey. And that was one of our matches that I think stood out because, we just challenged each other, pushed each other, went to the next level. And like, I think at that time, people hadn't seen someone like me and him go to that level. And, just beat the shit out of each other, for what we wanted.
Now, you also ended up teaming with Davey in PWG. What was it like teaming with him? You had so many contests against him.
No, it's great, man. He's just one of those people that, like I said, like our differences in real life, like.
But you agree fundamentally about wrestling.
Yeah, man. We love a lot of the same things. I mean, there's not.
It wasn't like I would prefer to do it this way and I would prefer to do
No,
this
we're
way.
just like, okay, I kind of get it. Like, we were both huge fans of the British Bulldogs, and, like, we ended up doing some of their stuff. Like, I don't know, we just have a lot of common stuff when it comes to wrestling, and it was fun. I mean, I enjoyed it.
And also another person you teamed with was Pac. Probably very early on in his times of coming over.
Yeah, that's something I actually asked to do.
Yeah, well, why is that?
Because, I mean, to me, like, the contrast of, and I learned it from me and Jack, like, of just what I did and what they do, like, it's like the perfect combination, especially in tag team wrestling, in the States in general, like, we can do stuff no one else can do. Me and Jack did stuff no one else can do. The funny thing is everyone just stole everything we've done, which I can't blame them because it was awesome stuff I just randomly thought of. But, Pac was a guy that I had a lot of respect for, and a lot of people were talking him up, and I'm like, after seeing him, I'm like, just put me and him together. Let's see what we can do. I mean, me and Jack were awesome. I mean, Pac's awesome. Like, sure we can't go wrong there,
No, I think at that time, like, Pac definitely doesn't look
Pac now.
Yeah, like Pac now.
No.
So
now Pac's done good for himself, man. He's one of those people that Japan did him really well, and I'm just proud. I think it's funny that like Jack left Dragon Gate, Matt went on to do what he did, and then Pac went there. Man, he's got like a more jacked body than Matt, but looks as good as Matt physically, but can do everything both of them can do. It's kind of crazy. He's like if you morph those guys had sex and had a baby, you get Pac.
Maybe instead of the man that gravity forgot, that's what he should be. If these two have sex and had a baby.
That's right.
That should be his tagline. No, also like kind of backing up here, like we just mentioned Dragon Kid, and you wrestled Dragon Gate guys and FIP and Ring of Honor.
Me and Jack were actually the first guys. Gaijin ever over for Dragon Gate.
Really? What was that experience like?
Man, that was the greatest experience of my life, honestly, because, as a wrestling fan, one of your goals, go to Japan. Go to Japan. And I'm like, holy shit. We actually got to go as the first, like, Gaijins over for them. And to go over, not only to Japan, but to be a big deal was fucking amazing. And the fact that I had no idea what was going on there also was amazing. Because I ate like 400 sandwiches a day. Because I didn't know how to eat there. Couldn't speak to anybody. Me and Jack were rooming, and he smokes like 1 million cigarettes a day. So it was like the most, took me outside of my box of like regular life. Like all this random shit. It was just amazing. I don't know. And then we got a ton of press coverage. And they had Jack do like the craziest things. Like he would flip like off the top of this like electric box that was on the top of like the 26th floor of this huge newspaper, like over me and like SEMA and just all these amazing things, and just the fact that people cared we were going there was amazing.
But now back to PWG here a little bit. You've been kind of almost a fixture in the company. You've always been a part of the Bolas. You're part of
DDTs.
DDTs. They always find whatever is going on.
That's
with
my
you.
thing.
They just kind of plug you in, and it's even like IW Mid-South and a lot of other things. It's like if you're gonna have a tournament, you always it seems like Roderick Strong has to be plugged into that equation. Especially in '09, you got to wrestle Kenny Omega in the finals of Bola, and it seems like that was kind of the beginning of Kenny Omega's climb, especially in PWG and probably everywhere else, like in America. What was Kenny like to work?
Man, Kenny's an interesting character because he's kind of off the wall, but I mean, I look at him a little bit like I look at Davey. Like, they're in their own worlds, but when it comes to wrestling, like, we just click, and that was something I think is kind of funny because me and Kenny wrestled in Ring of Honor and we just didn't click, but when we wrestled in PWG, we just did. It was just, I think it was the atmosphere, what was going on, like everything was a little bit different. I love that match. It's one of probably my top, 20 matches or whatever, but it's one of those matches that like really meant a lot because for me it was a strong performance. But he was also wrestling somebody like Kenny, and we did a lot of stuff, and he wrestles different than a lot of people, and I don't know, it was just a great experience.
Also, one of the things you got to do with PWG in Kurt Russell reunion, you got to wrestle in a three-way with Chris Hero and Rob Van Dam. What was that experience like? What was Rob? Because that was like before Rob Van Dam was on TNA, and he'd kind of been gone for a while, so there was a lot of wonder of what's this guy like? Can he still do what he used to do? What was? There was a lot of expectations and questions marks about that match, and it seemed to go fairly well. And
no, Rob was great. The only thing that I heard Rob said, which I thought was kind of funny, is if the match sucks, it's not his fault. In an interview, I heard that, but he never said anything to me or Hero, or he never acted like a dick. Like, he was cool as can be, and then he went out there and he worked hard, and I was personally shocked being a guy that was a fan of his, and enjoyed watching him wrestle, and the fact that he had kind of been doing nothing pretty much. And his willingness, to just be like, whatever,
Was he aware of who either of you were?
No.
Hadn't really been paying attention.
I don't think so. That's why, when he said that, like, I don't know anything about these guys, so if the match sucks, like, it's not my fault. Like, the match didn't suck, so.
No, I wouldn't say that.
It was nobody's fault, though.
No. And it was definitely probably one of the matches that kind of made people go, yeah, Rob Van Dam still is good. And
yeah, the only thing I could have done without is this band playing the whole time prior to the show starting.
You and me both.
So.
You and me both.
I know the words now, and I didn't want to. But
all 5 of them?
Yes.
5 words.
But what I think is pretty awesome is it sounds better on TNA.
Any other matches that stick out in your head about PWG?
Oh, man. PWG matches. The crazy thing is I've had so many matches there that have been, to me, like, really good for various different reasons. But me and Rocky had a really good feud there. We ended up doing like a 2 out of 3 falls match at one point, and I don't know. I love Rocky, and I think he, once again, is a super underrated talent. But that guy's managed to make money internationally, like hand over fist, and he's done a great job for himself. So, anything with me and Rocky and PG. What else? Me and Davey against El Generico and Quicksilver, where Quicksilver almost died after that match. Did Davey talk about that at all?
No, I don't think so. I wasn't there for that interview. So.
Oh, really?
I wasn't here for Davey's. So.
Oh,
so
well.
You tell me.
Well.
May not have.
Well, I had gotten staph infection from Davey. Because he had got it from IWA. Then we wrestled in FIP. But then we had to wrestle at PWG. And I wanted to wear my shirt. And El Generico did not give me the C to it. He said, no bueno on that, my friend. So I said, okay, I'll tape my body up where it was. Because it was like on my side. And Quicksilver ended up getting it. But it got into his bloodstream, which is then deadly. So Quicksilver almost died and never came back to wrestle ever again from that match. But there's also the match that El Generico busted me open doing a crossbody. He crossbodied and his pelvic region landed high and his hip bone sliced my eyebrow open. So that match was just fucking craziness. My eye got fucked up. Guy almost died. It was unreal.
One thing that I've always noticed about you, and that's always stuck out about you, is you had you have an ability to make everybody look good in some way, shape, or fashion, but still making yourself look good as well. One thing that you always seem like when somebody's starting a company, like, or somebody's at an established company and they have a local guy, or they have somebody that's inexperienced wrestling, top tier guys, but they want them to be at that level of top tier guys. It seems like it's like, well, let's book Roderick Strong against him and see if he's worth his mustard. If he has a good match against Roderick, he might stand a chance. But if he has a bad match with Roderick, there's probably not a lot of future in him. Because if you look back at IWA South, you wrestled the very early Ricochet. Willie Mack has wrestled you several times in PWG. You even talk about Eric. Eric, before he started wrestling, he was really kind of just a local Florida guy. And I mean, just there's a lot of guys you could name that their first big opportunity to wrestle somebody who's at top of the card was with you. Is that something that's kind of a chip on your shoulder, or is that something you even consciously know about yourself?
No, I just think, man, I was always taught, and a lot of people have been taught, in wrestling, first, you need to learn how to make an opponent look good. So it's kind of funny, because back when I had my own ring in my backyard, that's all I would do is wrestle matches against imaginary opponents, and all I would do is take moves from them all day. And that is, to me, been one of the most important things about my career, is the fact that when I go out there, it doesn't matter about me. I feel like my performance will be strong enough that I will be able to maintain my level no matter what it is, because I've had great opportunities. People believed in me, and I take advantage. And I feel like if someone is like, hey, we really want to test this guy, I'm like, fuck, I believe that I'm going to bring it to this guy, and I'm going to test if he's got it or not, because guys did that to me, and, it's actually an honor to do that, because I would love to be, at the end of the day, one of those people that are like, oh, if he wrestles a broomstick, you have a great match. That to me, that is being an overall great wrestler, besides doing moves and, being able to tell a story with people that may not be on your level, but at the end of the match, no matter if it's 5 people or 500 people or 5,000 people, they feel like this guy's your equal and you've done your job. So I like it. It's like a test. I always like a challenge.
Is there anyone in particular that you were kind of put in that situation with that maybe you were surprised either didn't achieve a certain level of success, or surprised that, he did so well against me, I'm surprised nothing ever happened with him? Were there people like that?
There's a ton of people like that, in a sense that do good enough. But to me, it's not a matter of if they did good against me. It's a matter of where they go 6 months from what they did with me. Because I feel I give simple enough instructions. I don't know everything, and I feel like I know this much about wrestling, and there's this much to learn about wrestling. So I'm just doing the old steady climb. And the fact that I feel the more open someone's ears are and the more willing they are to try something that they hear would maybe help them be better. That's how I judge. Even if they don't like become successful immediately thereafter, like even if like they're like, we're gonna push this guy to the moon, and then it's like, I kind of shit the bed. You know, maybe 2 years from now, one day this guy will wake up and be like, oh fuck, like that kind of made sense. Like I didn't really think about it at the time, but I don't know, man. There's just a lot of people. It's weird, like when you wrestle so many people. You know, like I guess one of the people I'd say, like Elgin is one. Like me, Eddie, and him, and man, our match to me, like it was terrible, terrible match to my standards. You know, but you know, then you look at his career now and what he's trying to do for himself. You know, and then that's something where it's like, you know, maybe it didn't click for him the next day, a year from then, but at some point, you know, things clicked. And I mean, you can always tell. And like, it's kind of weird being in the position where I look at people and be like, oh, this guy can go to the next level. Like when people thought about me like that, like, and I still feel like I have to go to the next level. I feel there's many levels for me to go, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's just weird. There's a lot of guys out there that I think, if given the right opportunity, and like, I feel people need to just be put in the position and fail or not fail. I think, you know, taking steps to get that position kind of, sometimes some people will crack them and they just can't make it, you know?
Yeah, because I mean, I look back at a lot of these PWGs and it's like you versus Willie Mack, and then I found a really weird one in IW Mid-South when you're wrestling Ricochet when he had like Cat Williams hair, where now he's wrestling for Dragon Gate a lot.
Yeah, and that's another guy that's, you know, that going to Japan's helped, like, especially with Dragon Gate, because they're a lot of character based and they have their presence is different than a standard Japanese company. So he's really like adapted to that style and brought it back, and it's really helped him because he was just the flippity guy before, you know, like everyone says. It's like now he has a presence and all that kind of stuff. I mean, so it's interesting. We still have yet to have another singles match, which I've been waiting on that one.
There you go. Starting off with Ring of Honor. Of course, now the company's with Sinclair Broadcasting and stuff like that. But before Sinclair Broadcasting, there was HDNet. What are your thoughts on you know, the time with HDNet? Was it a good thing, bad thing, or just kind of okay thing?
I thought it was good. I thought it taught a lot of people what television wrestling and what Ring of Honor could be. I think based on the fact that a lot of the guys on the roster had not worked for a company that had been on television before, it gave them an opportunity to learn, like, you know, working within your times, you know, playing to the people on the television and not so much people in the crowd. Just learning how to, you know, work a Ring of Honor style, but try to adapt it to a television format, which is way different than, you know, just a Ring of Honor style. I mean, you have to be able to condense something that has always been extended. I mean, Ring of Honor has always been known for having matches longer than everybody else. But I think it just kind of opens some people's eyes, you know, to the fact that the transition, you know, it's going to take a while because, you know, perfecting our style and being able to make it perfect for television is going to take some time. But I thought it was good, man. I loved the opportunity just to be able to have promos and be able to talk. I mean, that's the thing I've always asked for, is just how can I get better at something unless I do it? I've wrestled thousands of matches, but I probably, before that, had cut like 50 less promos in my whole entire career. So, I mean, especially for me, it was just a great opportunity to just talk, you know, and learn how good and or bad I may have been at it at the time. So
another major change at that time was switching of bookers. We went from Gabe Sapolsky to Adam Pearce. Was that a good move, bad move, or?
It's kind of weird in the sense of I mean, I can't judge if it was a good move or a bad move, because Gabe had his style and it still has his style. I mean, I love and respect Gabe. I mean, I still talk to him to this day. Because Gabe's, someone that really, really, like, I mean, put the fucking ball in my hand. I mean, there was 4 of us at the time, but he felt that I was talented enough to be a part of this group with these guys that, like, helped save Ring of Honor at the time. So, I mean, that was huge. And then Adam was a guy that, I mean, we were friends before he even took that position, but he just has a great wrestling mind. I mean, if you've ever talked to Adam or if you've ever heard him cut promos or seen him wrestle, I mean, he really has a great understanding of just wrestling in general, I feel. So, 2 totally different people, but 2 very passionate people. So, I mean, to me, it was great. I mean, on either end, because I have respect for both guys, and I feel they both did their different things. I mean, the company obviously changed some when Adam was in charge, but I mean, I think that was more of the wrestlers aspect than the actual booker asking us to be different than what we were.
Well, how did the company change? What were the things that they did that were different?
Well, you see, when he took over, I mean, obviously the whole TV thing came into play, and, like, that changed the company. Like, being on television, the Ring of Honor product, not modified, does not translate well. I mean, being someone that's watched the product and wrestled for the product, like, it doesn't translate well to a casual fan, I feel. And this is something I've said based on the fact that not a lot of people are used to having such condensed matches. But that's why I feel now, like on Sinclair, like we've really progressed. Like a lot of the younger guys have a lot better understanding of, what they can do and what can appeal to people in that 8 minutes they have, like, I don't know, I think that's why, like, when you ask, like, the good of the, about HDNet, like, that was the great thing of, people learning, like, hey, we need to learn how to really transform this. Even me, myself, like, how can we transform what we're doing to this TV style to appeal to the casual person, so.
Because you're mostly a DVD product, and it's like, just fill up this.
Yeah, and that's what, and a lot of people, like, said Adam tried to change the product, and he never did. Literally never did. He probably made people a little bit more aware of the fact that they could get more out of, a little bit less, but he always wanted the best possible matches out of everybody. Like, he never asked you to do anything that you didn't want to do, so I don't know. I think the comparisons are tough based on that fact because there are 2 different times of the company.
Were there some people that had like a hard time transitioning?
I think everybody. Like, I'm not even gonna point one finger at like one individual. I think everybody, myself. Like, even though I wrestled on TV before, like them being away from it for a couple years and then having to go back to it and like trying to translate it, like I was saying, like, to the casual fan, like, it was a tough transition at first. So I think just, in general, it didn't at first come off the way the Ring of Honor product should.
Also, about that time, I believe Cornette started to get more involvement in the HDNet tapings and stuff like that. How was Cornette at that time during the HDNet?
And it was great. I mean, and honestly, there was, a point where I was just begging for help, with promos, because I just did, like I said, I had never done it. And Jim was a guy that really took his time. Like, D'Lo Brown was another guy when he was there, like, took his time with me, like, and really helped me just slow myself down and be more me and not, try to be something I'm not. But obviously it took a long time because I didn't have a lot of practice. But Jim really, like, took his time, and he took his time with a lot of people just to put a little bit more effort and emotion into it and to make it like his little project. So, I don't know. I thought it was, just awesome. Especially for me. I can't complain whatsoever.
Now, There are a lot. I'm trying to remember when this exactly happened. There was a time there where a bunch of guys got let go, and I believe Eric Stevens was involved with that. Necro was involved with that. I think that was during the time of HDNet and stuff like that, and not too long after Pierce had been removed and stuff like that. What were your thoughts on all? It seemed like there were a lot of chess pieces being moved at that time.
And that was, I don't know, it was one of those situations where, first off, I tend to not react to other people's business. It's a sensitive business, man. And being someone that has made many a sacrifices to stay with the Ring of Honor based on the fact that I had so much faith in Ring of Honor, to see that they had to do some of the things they did, on a friend level, it's very tough to deal with. But on a professional level, you know, at the end of the day, you have to think about yourself. And, I mean, it was tough to see these people go, but, you know, it was just, I just didn't know what was going to happen. I was like, well, this is fucking shitty, but do I still have a job? Okay. You know, I mean, so that was my thoughts at the time. Like, I don't want anybody to be let go. I want everyone to be there all the time. But when it comes to those situations, you know, at the end of the day, you have to think about paying your bills and eating the next day. And if I'm still able to do that, I'm thankful for that.
And also during the time of HDNet, you got to work with Sweet and Sours and stuff, and Larry Sweeney, and of course, Larry Sweeney's passing. What were your memories of Larry Sweeney?
Man, it's so funny because, like, me and Larry, like had, like, an awesome connection. I'm sure, like, a ton of people would say that because he was just that type of guy. Like, he was so much fun to be around, and I don't know, it was just crazy. Like, to see the transition of him come in, because it was something that, like, a lot of us wanted before it actually happened, and when it did, like, we were extremely happy. And then the fact we got to work with him was, you know, I was super excited about it just because he was so talented. So, I mean, everything that ended up happening with him was a very, very tough thing, but I think it was an eye-opener about how, you know, mental disorders and stuff can really affect people. And it kind of made it a little bit real to me because a lot of stuff like that I was always like, oh, that's bullshit, that's fake, that's just, you know, people not knowing how to handle, like, life in general. And then you seeing that, and, like, that was a great fucking guy, man. He really cared about people a lot, and, like, it was terrible. It was heartbreaking.
It almost seems like sometimes like wrestling will wear on you and almost kind of make you like almost like a sociopath because you're just so thinking of nothing other than what you're doing and kind of tone things out, and then you almost feel like it messes you up mentally as far as like an eating disorder. It almost feels like you live that way because you always are constantly worried about how you look and stuff like that. You made a drastic change in your body from probably the very beginning of Ring of Honor to even this time now. Through, you know, it's like I need to be obsessing in that. Like, what caused that change in you?
Well, it's kind of weird. Like, my whole life, like, I was a very overweight child. Like, I had a very, like, hard upbringing. Like, I didn't have, like, parents weren't shitty to me, but like I had stated earlier, like, my mother was a drug addict, my dad was an alcoholic, and both are doing great at this point in their life. But as a child, you don't understand that. Like, my mom would leave like 3 weeks at a time. She'd be like, oh, I'm going to get milk, and I'd be like, okay, I'll see you in a minute, because my sister would be there with me, but then my mom wouldn't come home for 3 weeks at a time. That kind of stuff, like, affected me emotionally, like, and then I became an emotional eater, and it was weird, like, being an athlete my whole life, like, literally I played every sport, obviously, when you're younger, so you can play every sport. I even won a state title, like, bowling, come on. This guy was too fat to play Little League football, but it just takes, like, an emotional, like, control of you, and, like, you know, the more I was, you know, in wrestling, like,
Because you made a very drastic change. I think probably even the course of the HDNet tapings, I almost want to say.
It was a little bit about that time.
Because you had some size to you, then all of a sudden you shrink down, which I feel like even in entertainment, like we don't have the Schwarzeneggers and the Stallones where everybody's a jacked up muscle guy. Most of our action stars are much leaner than they were in the 80s.
Well, this is kind of my train of thought was, and this is something I had heard from somebody, but when I wrestled Kurt Angle, like one of the reasons I didn't get hired from that was because I wasn't in good enough shape. And I weighed 217 when I wrestled him. Like that was the biggest I was. Like I tried to do once I started wrestling and like full time was just get as big as I possibly could. But genetically, like the way I work, my belly gets big. You know, and that's not everybody. That's just genetically, that's how I do it. And like I was strong as shit, and I was getting bigger, but my belly was big. And then after hearing that, it kind of like, I was like, man, a change needs to happen to me. Something needs to happen, you know, for me to go to that next level then, you know. Because after that, I obviously got in a little bit better shape. Then I went to TNA and I did that. But then when like I knew Ring of Honor was getting ready to go, you know, on HDNet, like MMA was like really starting to get popular, and like the athletes are lean, like they're not big bulky looking people. They're lean as can be, and to me I felt like my big change would be I was this one person here, but I need to be this other person here, and that'll be my game changer, my character change, is to look more like an athlete, because I've always been an athlete my whole life, but I really needed to dedicate myself to the dieting portion of, you know, this job. And that's kind of, it's funny when me and Evan Bourne and Cole Cabana started living together, Evan was like, hey, got my buddy, he'll help you out, because I was like, dude, I need to just get shredded. Like, I just want to do it. Like, I've never done it my whole entire life, and it's something I feel like I owe myself for my career and just owe myself for my confidence, you know? And he's like, I got this guy, and it'll be perfect for you. And the funny thing is, I didn't know his name. He just gave me his email address. So I emailed him, and his email was, you know, the Viggity at Hotmail. I didn't know this, so I was like, the Viggity. So I ended up calling him the Viggity, which now he has got a name. Like Brian Alvarez talks about him all the time because he's good friends with him, and he's worked with a bunch of the people in the WWE. Now it's kind of funny, like snowballed in this huge thing, but like me and him just hit it off. We had a lot in common. He really helped teach me about nutrition and the type of training I need to do for what I'm doing, instead of the bodybuilder style training, like, you know, the more, you know, the cleans, the more athletic, you know, go back to what I was doing in high school, obviously, and train like that to get to where I need to be. And I mean, the big sacrifice at first was dropping a ton of size, which you know, it was tough, but it was something that has helped me, because I dropped a ton of weight, dropped a ton of size, and then I eventually, you know, put it on a little bit better and a lot more proportionate. So, I mean, I think the Viggity, I mean, he's one of my best friends on the planet today, and he's one of the people that helped change my life, and he's helped a lot of people.
Well, and a lot of your moveset was a lot of pick a guy up, slam him, and all that stuff. With you being much leaner, did you feel like it almost look unbelievable with some people, or in a sense kind of hinder the way your style of wrestling was?
Nah, not really, because I felt I built my name up enough and my reputation as being strong. Like, I'm still strong. Like, I'm people strong. I'm farm strong. I mean, it's just how I am. I get it from my dad. I mean, my dad's a really strong guy, and it's just something like that was important to him. So it's always been kind of important to me to just be a strong human strength. Like, it's this big thing to me. He would always, as a kid, you gotta have human strength. Human strength. The gym doesn't really matter. It's like what you can do with people. Okay, can you lift this log off the ground? Yeah. So I'd do stuff like that like all the time. So maybe a little bit at first when I got really thin because I was a little too thin, but in time, like, I modified my work, and a lot of that, man, I was hurt. Like, I never once took time off. Like, just worked through injuries. Like I said, I ended up having SoCal match of the year with a torn calf muscle, and I wrestled Bryan Danielson for 57 minutes with a torn calf muscle. No one knows that, but I did, and I just worked through the stuff. Like, I mean, a lot of that ended up happening like at the worst time though. All the injuries like happened when I was trying to lose weight, so then you can't lift weights really, and you got to eat appropriately to your like activity level. So I don't know, all of that kind of like tied into a weird point, and I got too small, but I think now I'm all right.
Kind of during coming off the HDNet tapings and stuff like that, it came a time where you've been giving a lot of title opportunities, and Tyler Black had the title, and it seems like you've been put in that main event spot, challenged for the title, unsuccessful. Put in that main event spot, unsuccessful. Put in that title spot and unsuccessful. And it came an opportunity where Tyler was moving on in his career, and you were facing him. And obviously, the no-brainer is you're going to beat him for the title and go over. But it almost seemed like it was like kind of a make-or-break situation. Like if Roderick Strong doesn't win the belt now, after he's been put in this main event spot so many times, it's like, is he ever going to win it? Did you ever feel that way, or was it a situation like what was the feeling of you coming into winning this title, or because you were doing this angle, then you got signed and all that stuff?
Yeah, man, the crazy thing with that, and I think Adam's like stamped that out a few times. People think because
it was very long, drawn out. For
a
while.
But just because, like, why not make it that way? Why not have something that doesn't happen immediately? Why not let both people do, what they're doing? But I think it's kind of funny people feel that it was like, oh, they're just giving Roderick the title because Tyler's leaving. And Adam said, like he said in interviews before, that I mean that was what they were going to do, and that was the plan. I mean, and I just thought it was awesome that me and Tyler were having awesome matches leading up to that. So, I mean, I don't know. I felt for my career, if that wouldn't have been the time, if I never would have won it, like, I would have felt like probably a little disappointed based on the fact that it got to the point where I was getting tired of having these matches because people were not believing in that. Because, I mean, I don't even know how many people try to tell me all the time, would you have 16, 17? I don't even know how many title matches I had before that match.
It was a lot. And
it was a shit ton, and it was annoying to a point because it was either it should have happened 5 years before that or never at all. And then it happened at the time it happened at, and it was like, okay, what are we going to do with this? And it was such an interesting aspect to me because he was hated because he's leaving. I was hated because I was with Truth. It was just so weird, dynamic, but so awesome at the same time because I was finally being put in the position where I am comfortable in saying, this is the challenge. I'm an athlete that needs to be challenged. And when you're the champ, you're challenged every night to be the best on the show. I was like, this is awesome. But it was just super fucking challenging, being someone that you won the belt from a heel, from a bad guy, and you're a bad guy, and it's like, well, fuck this guy, So I felt really challenged, going into the whole thing.
Especially in New York,
yeah.
Center, it's probably one of the more difficult crowds you wrestle in front of.
Oh, they were good. They were definitely good.
And also, you just touched on it briefly, there was another booker change from Adam to Hunter, Good, bad, didn't need to happen, should have happened?
I mean, I'm not the boss, so I can't say what should or should not happen. I mean, and that's another one. Like,
Did it surprise you?
yeah, I had no idea. Like, to me, I thought everything was going all right, but I mean, obviously, I try to keep myself distant from all of that office BS political stuff because to me, I get an opportunity to do what I love on a continuous basis, hang out with some of my best friends now that I've met from being in this company, and I just want to do the best for the company. That's why I've been here for so long, is to do the best for Ring of Honor. So, I mean, if they felt like it was the best move, then okay, you know. Do I miss Adam? I love Adam to death. I mean, we still talk to this day, like. But I also think Hunter brings a lot to the table. He's got a very good wrestling mind. So to me, I would have just mixed all three of them together and see what kind of crazy fucking bullshit they could, come up with.
And also, as your time as the champion, of course, you got to now wrestle Davey, but now it's top of the card for the title. He's so well liked, and people so want to see him with the belt. You're now so hated. There's so much behind your matches as opposed to guys just going to have a good match. There's so much emotion involved. What was it now like to wrestle Davey at such a high level and such a fever pitch of emotion?
That was good. That's what it's all about, man. You work for those days, and I think obviously with our relationship, man, those are the perfect positions for both of us because I was saying we're competitors, and it's like, how can we make the most out of this situation? And to me, that was the biggest thing. Like, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do this big, and he felt the same way. We're gonna just lay it all out there, and then we'll see how the cards play. And to me, it was one of those good moments where you surprise people at times, and I enjoyed that.
I'm trying to. I think Final Battle was probably the match that most people talk about between the matches that you had. Would you agree with that, or were there some other matches you're like, I don't know why they didn't think this one was better? Or
I don't really think about it like that.
Well, do you pay attention to what people say about you on the internet?
Nah, not really. Man, I used to back in the day, but now you realize that this was something that my dad kind of helped me with. Just realizing, like, when I appear in front of a live crowd, I get a great reaction. People care about me. So what 5, 10, 15 people say about me on the internet really doesn't hurt my feelings because people that come and see me live know that I'm working as hard as I possibly can. And I'm giving everything I possibly can. Good, bad, or indifferent, like you're getting all of me all the time. Hurt or not, So I just worry about those situations and worrying about, my boss is telling me what they want me to do. And if I do the job that I'm getting paid to do, that's all I care about.
Well, you say, there's the 5, 10 people that pay attention to the internet, but there are thousands to 2,000 people buying internet pay-per-views and hundreds of them talking while it's going on in the network. Do you feel like the world of it being just a few people talking about it on the internet to now everybody's talking on the internet about it? Like, there's a lot of young kids. There's a lot of
there is, but the thing is I understand people are easily influenced. Like, that's one of the things that I try to tell people. Like,
even more so, even promoters. Sometimes promoters will look at these messages or these discussions. And this Roderick Strong match is boring, and then like, oh, I'm not going to book Roderick Strong.
And that's fine. To me, that's fine. But I know every promoter that has ever booked me has brought me back more than one time, because live event wise, they always have great turnaround. And a lot of people always are excited to watch me wrestle. And to me, that's what matters. When I have a promoter come to me and be like, man, these people said you were awesome. Like, to me, that's great. That's the big pay. Not the people that didn't come to the show, that may have heard the show wasn't good. You know, yeah, they're gonna type something, and a ton of people may read it, and it may influence like a dozen people. But at the end of the day, it doesn't change what I'm doing for my job, because my job is to entertain the people that come pay to see me do what I do, and I assure most people never leave and be like, God, that guy fucking, he sucked. He just kind of just did not give it his all, you know? Like, they'll be entertained, and it'll be one of the best matches of the night, always.
Now, as far as people that pay for what you do, that's obviously changed now from the beginning of Ring of Honor. But here we've talked about Ring of Honor several times, and we haven't talked about Kerry Silkin. Can you just kind of give me your thoughts on Kerry Silkin?
Man, I love Kerry, man. He's one of those guys that has a crazy past. I mean, it was probably been well noted a little bit that he, whatever, in his life, and we kind of had a common bond based on the fact that of my upbringing, and Kerry was someone that's been very helpful, like, with my family. I mean, so he went from being my boss to being my friend, and that's one of the best things about Kerry, and that's why people loved working for Ring of Honor, because Kerry loves wrestling, and it's pretty crazy. Like, I mean, we talk, obviously still now to this day, at least once a week. Like, he loves wrestling, and he loves, like, Ring of Honor, and he just loves, the effort put out there. And I think, people can't thank him enough, but I think he kind of gets it at this point, that he kept Ring of Honor no matter how bad it was going, financially at some points for him. Like, he kept it alive because he knew how many people really enjoyed it. And he's a fucking great guy, man. And, I don't know, he's one of the best bosses I've ever had in my life, so.
Well, now you have a new boss, Sinclair Broadcasting.
And they're awesome, too, man. They're nice. They're very nice to me. I don't have a relationship with them like I do with Kerry, but, I mean, they're great people, too.
What are some of the challenges that Sinclair Broadcasting has had to deal with in now taking over a wrestling company? Now, it's great that nice that they can sell to TV affiliates, hey, we have wrestling that we can put in these time slots. But understanding the monster that is pro wrestling is a much more difficult task. What are some of the challenges they face?
Just understanding the monster that is in front of them, because people obviously have a very negative outlook on wrestling, like when it comes to television in general, based on the fact of people being so judgmental of WWE back in the day or whatever happened to them, and being afraid to touch it because they think it's kind of a taboo thing, even though wrestling in general gets great ratings and usually makes networks good money. But, I think we're the only original, like, content Sinclair owns. So it's just understanding it all. But being a successful broadcasting group that they are, and knowing that they came in with a plan, I mean, I think some things are a little startling to them. The fact that it does as much money that it does cost to do what we do. But I think they kind of have a little bit better understanding than people think they do, like, on what they're getting themselves into.
Now, from the time of HDNet, Jim Cornette it seemed like he was around and gave his input and helped out where he could. Where now with Sinclair Broadcasting, I believe he has an actual official title of executive producer and such, and seems to be more hands-on with the product. Do you feel that that's a good thing, and as opposed to just using Jim kind of in a special, like, hey, Jim, can you help this guy just get some promos? Can you help with this angle? Now Jim has to deal with what's going on with match 1 to match 4, 5, 6, 7.
See, I don't think Jim has to do all of that. I think Jim has to deal with match maybe 4, maybe 6, maybe 8. I think people don't have a real understanding of what's going on there. So they don't understand who is in control of what and what is in control of what. I think it's a little bit more under control than people think.
Okay, we'll give it, there's been a lot of detractors. If you're a supporter, give me your case why Jim has been doing an excellent job with Ring of
I think
Honor.
Jim's been doing a good job, man. I think when you're in the Booker position, like him and Hunter are in the Booker positions, those are the two guys that would plan anything in this company. You're in a shitty position, so you can't.
You're the lightning rod. You're the one that gets criticized if it doesn't go well.
Well, exactly, and like every company, there's a lot of good, and there's a little bad, but people only talk about the bad because it's no fun to talk about the good.
Of course.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'd rather talk about all the ugly bitches that try to hit on me than all the hot chicks. Like, really, that girl would hit on me? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just one of those situations where I think people criticize situations they don't know about good enough. Like, I feel Jim, does what he does. One of the favorite things about Jim with me is the fact that he'll take an old school concept, bring it to you, and be like, modify it, make it into today's. Whatever you can do. Because I know you guys can do anything. Fucking play with this shit. So he gives us Play-Doh and it's just like, oh, okay, this is the color you have to have, but just turn it into whatever you want. You know, and like I said before, I think Hunter has a fantastic wrestling mind, and I think them together, obviously, not everything's going to be a fucking home run, but I think they've done a lot better than people give them credit for. I just feel when you go to that next level, like as a company, people are going to be more critical than ever,
Okay. What are the big plans? Have you been, privy to what it lies ahead for Ring of Honor? Of course, they have the TVs, and of course, they're using iPay-per-views, probably in a similar way that regular pay-per-views had always been for WCW and WWE. Like, we're going to use our TVs to promote people to go on the internet. Do you feel that there's challenges in the sense that you're using broadcast television and then shifting people to a different medium of internet?
No, especially not the way the modern day is, man. I think far more people would be willing to watch shit on the internet than anything. So I have a few buddies that do like marketing fully internet based, and they're online all the time. And I just know all the people they deal with, thousands of people, that is their life. And the fact that obviously Ring of Honor does great numbers, pay-per-view wise, especially compared to everybody else. You can compare everybody else. You can put a bunch of people's numbers together and they won't come near to what we've done. And I think that kind of just shows something that obviously, we're connecting with people on a certain level, and the willingness, because it's a lot cheaper to produce it that way, and Ring of Honor has now taken the steps to fix all the issues that they had before, that it just is a far easier concept. If I knew I could walk around with my cell phone and watch a pay-per-view, why wouldn't I? If I knew I could just order that shit and I could just watch it anytime I wanted, but it was only $15 instead of $45, why wouldn't I? I look at it from that, as a consumer, point of view also with the way the economy is. Like, we're saving people money, but also putting on some dynamic fucking blow-your-mind events. So,
what's in the future for Ring of Honor, Sinclair Broadcasting?
Who knows, man? I think only bigger and better things, man. Our ratings are doing good. The talent is, adapting. Everyone's being put in positions to actually be challenged, and are you going to be able to be a top guy? And I think that's something they're doing right now, is like really putting the pressure on people to step up or fucking you're done. You know what I'm saying? Not like they'd fire them, but who knows? But just in general, like giving people opportunities to fucking succeed or fail. So I think Sinclair has a business plan. They're going to follow it. And I think you can't judge what has happened in 1 year off of what's going to happen in, X amount of years. I think that was, I think the fans unrealistically expecting like an overnight change, and not realize. I think the fans didn't realize the machine Sinclair was getting behind more so than Sinclair didn't realize it. You know what I'm saying?
And also, too, it seems like there was a shift in the way they do business where it seemed like it's a very DVD revenue company to now all we have to do is get this big name sponsor to be an advertiser, and then that makes more money than we did for selling a DVD.
But that's you don't understand, and that's the thing. Like, people don't understand that. Like, having a conversation with the guys that are in charge of everything, like the change of rating difference and the money difference between all that is insane. And I didn't know until I asked. And that's why I think people, and that what makes us the bad guy to people, because we're that underground band. No one wanted us to see, go beyond what we were. But once we, poked our head out a little bit, they're like, fuck those guys. They're doing it all wrong. They can't do anything good.
They're sellouts now.
Yeah, fuck, It's like, no, we're just trying to get better. And, like, the guys that have stuck around, like me and the Briscoes and even Hunter, like, he got the position he did. But guys that are in our company that stuck around, that wanted to see this company succeed, that really wanted to see, like, Ring of Honor be as successful as it possibly could, like, they should be like, fuck yes, because these guys are finally getting an opportunity to take the company they love to that level. But instead, people are like, this is my company, I love them so much. They can't be, they can't be seen worldwide, I don't know. It's just, people get selfish. They don't understand how it is on the other end of the spectrum.
You should be their dirty little secret.
Yeah, and that's what they want. I get it. But I want to make money. I want to buy a fucking humongous house.
Well, one of the things with you is getting bigger and better things and better opportunities. Just recently, you had an opportunity to wrestle Jushin Thunder Liger, undoubtedly a legend in professional wrestling. And not only that, but you have now a victory over Jushin Thunder Liger. Well, I mean, you and I have talked personally about it. What are your thoughts on that? To me, I think that's a very big deal.
I mean, it's a huge deal to me. I mean, the whole concept and thought of wrestling a guy that I watched for so long is surreal to me. And we were in there, like, it's still unbelievable because I haven't watched the match yet. So until I do that, it'll just be like a dream, because just to see his entrance and like just see him stand across the ring from me and realize like this is a legend, and the fact that on that night I brought everything I could and he did too, and I won, and that was fucking huge, and I love it. And it's I don't know. One, I think it speaks for things I've done in my career to put myself in a position for that to happen. And two, like, just as a giddy little kid, like, I just feel like one of the luckiest guys on the planet to have wrestled, like, someone, so sought after, such a legend, someone so respected. And the fact that, he showed me respect after the match and everything. I mean.
Well, not only that, he, like, insisted on putting you over. And a lot of people don't know that, and I think that's probably, and he knew who you were. He knew that he wanted to create a new star, which you have helped bring people up from the bottom of the card to mid-card to possibly a main event spot. Now somebody's trying to do that for you.
And it's not, and if you put it like that, it's just, you talk about all the times you want to go to that next level. And like the times you're talking about, the dream is to go to Japan. That's a dream. Okay, if I land in Japan, that's great. I mean, that's going to fucking blow my mind. But then you wrestle a guy that you've been a fan of for years. And the fact that he has enough respect for you because you've made and you've worked hard enough to make a name for yourself, that he's willing to do what he has to do and put you over, is mind-blowing. Like, And to me, it was kind of surreal. And even to this day, to talk about it, it's like really surreal to have been in that situation. And it just, and like you said, him just to insist on something that is just crazy. When you're, I'll think about when I'm 21 years old. Like, really? Will I ever meet Liger? And then I'm like, well, shit, I'm wrestling him, and he insists on this, and it's just great to see a guy not afraid of his position, realizing he's a fucking legend. He's the man. So, I love you, Liger. No homo.
Now that we're kind of coming to a close to this interview, I just kind of want to throw some names at you, because there's a lot of names that are very big in your life personally and out inside the ring and outside the ring. Most notably, the Briscoe brothers. We haven't discussed them in any sort of depth whatsoever.
I know, those guys, man. It's kind of crazy because when me and Cedric went to Jersey All Pro and did that Friday night show, the Bingo Hall, I met Jay and Mark for the first time, knowing of them and then meeting them. And Jay with the ugliest fucking goatee, shit on his chin at the time. I was like, oh my god, look at these fucking guys, right? And then, when we wrestled with them, we went to Generation Next, and then, they took time off, and then they came back, and just to, become, super close friends, we ended up doing, Ring of Honor did Europe, and then we ended up doing, a tour there, and, me and Jay once got lost, and then we took, a 2-hour detour to get to our hotel, and ended up becoming, really good friends. I mean, it's amazing, those guys, just the progression, and the fact that for so long I told them, and I think it's funny, people perceive them as something, but they're, just normal, hardworking, successful. Their parents got successful chicken farms. They're not broke fucking dumb rednecks. Mark's kind of a genius and Jay's indifferent, whatever. Hey, sorry, Jay. But, they're fucking hardworking people, man, and I love them to death, and they embrace everybody like their family, and it's unreal to meet people like them, and the fact that they've been so embraced and they've actually just become them more than ever is awesome, and just to see the whole acceptance of that is the coolest thing ever, honestly.
A couple of guys that are a tag team, but one guy has been specifically kind of in the current events as of recently. All Night Express, Kenny King and Red Tights. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on both those guys?
Yeah, about that, man. Me and Kenny have ties back to FIP before he came to Ring of Honor. I mean, I had Kenny's big test match in FIP was against me after Ring of Honor weekend, and wrestled in a rodeo area. I put
Oh, we're okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's just my headset's going out. Go ahead.
Okay, I smashed a McDonald's cheeseburger in Kenny King's face during this brawl in these stands. And I looked at him as I was whooping his ass. He had ketchups, and they're finely diced onions in his nose. Kenny's got big nostrils. Not to be racist here, but he's got big nostrils. And that was hilarious. And then after that event, I don't know. I learned a lot about Kenny. He really, he stood his ground, and he worked very hard, and I don't know, me and him really became friends after that. And to see him progress to, where he is today has been good. And obviously, he's in a controversial spot, and it's kind of funny that it's in the company that Eric Bischoff is in, because didn't Eric Bischoff write that book?
Controversy creates cash.
There you go. See? And Kenny King's all about that money. All night long, right? Mm-hmm. There. And Rhett, man, it's funny. I still tell him, and Grizzly Redwood, actually, to this day, like when Austin would come down for FIP, he'd be like, man, I got these 2 students that just, I really feel like they're going to make it. Like there was other people there. He's just like, I have these 2 guys that I really feel like they're going to make it. And it was Grizzly and it was Rhett. And it's just funny to see both of them. Like, I love both of them to death. And I feel like, you know, they've grown and they just have, they're sponge-like in a sense. It's just funny to think about the day where you hear about these 2 random fucking guys that you think are like, okay, yeah, people say that about people. But to actually see, like, Rhett, like, doing as well as he is, and him and Kenny, man, when they put them together, it's funny, like, I bet they talked about, like, how they thought, they, like, that wasn't something they wanted totally, but they ended up making the best of it, and I thought it was awesome.
Truth Martini.
Oh, man, fuck that guy. You know, it's pretty funny is he did this, there's, that light's off over there.
Oh, well, we'll use this one.
Fuck that thing.
Fuck that one.
But he did Cabana's podcast, and he talked a little bit about just his life in general, how fucking wild he is. And people, like, think his on-air character is, like, drastic. This fucking guy is a total character. He's been a character his whole life. He's, like, almost 40. Like, he's a fucking character, but he's a great guy, and he has a great understanding of wrestling. And I think now he's starting to become appreciated by wrestling fans on the Ring of Honor level because they just see how fucking awesome he is. I don't know. I love him. I've had fun working with him, and I think he's super smart, and he's made my job a lot easier.
Another guy you just brought up, Colt Cabana.
Oh, man, Colt. Funniest Colt story I ever have is we wrestled an NWA show in, like, Kissimmee, like, Altamont Springs area. It's like a lucha show, but, like, I wrestled Cabana. And I never really wrestled Cabana other than, like, some random matches, and, like, I thought of Cabana as a comedy wrestler. We went out there, Cabana I did something to Cabana, hit him. This motherfucker punched me so hard. My mind was blown. I was like, this fucking guy, right? Then he ended up being my fucking roommate. What the fuck? I don't know. I think Cabana is one of those people that are so under... I don't know. You can't appreciate that guy enough. He traveled the world, learned his craft. He's like Eddie Edwards to me. They had one of the best matches ever when I wrestled Jay Briscoe. I believe it was Jay. Jay Briscoe in Charlotte, North Carolina. They were opening match. One of the best opening matches ever, I feel. And it's just 2 really fucking talented guys that know how to wrestle and went out there and did that shit. I love Cabana. His podcast is very successful. And if you listen to his first episode and listen to him now, he's becoming a fucking professional.
No, I just brought up my next one, Eddie Edwards, the man that you dropped the title to in Manhattan Center.
Man, you know what's crazy is that was like a big deal to me because to be a part of history and Ring of Honor, like, to me, like, if I'm ever a part of anything and if I'm a part of history, like, for it to be random as fuck, like, it's huge. And I personally, and I don't know if you ever talked to Eddie about this, but, like, when the TV title got talked about for HDNet, like, Eddie was the guy that I said that should go on. Like, to me, like, he's perfect for it. Eddie's a guy that's traveled the world, has learned his craft, very respectful, and he's just really just earned his stripes, man. That's why I think the fans get so behind him, because he's a guy that they know has just really worked fucking hard to be in his position, and then we've ended up becoming, like, really good friends, and, you know, to have that opportunity to be in a position to make history in Ring of Honor and it be so special for, like, one of my best friends, I mean, was awesome to me. And I thought he did a great job, and I love wrestling him. That's why all of our matches were always different. They're always fun, like, because we both challenge each other. Because, you know, he likes to change shit up, and so do I. So it's awesome.
And especially that match, it came as a big shock for the title. Cause
Yeah, and it was
so you and Davey, and then Eddie out of nowhere.
No, I thought it was awesome, man. I couldn't have asked for it to be any better, and the fact that he put a lot of trust in my hands to put that match together was was awesome.
Well, now coming to the current Ring of Honor champion, Kevin Steen.
Kevin Steen, man, he's a strange apple. He's a guy that had like a weird path to where he's at, but I think Kevin's an opportunist, and he likes to take advantage of his situations, and I think Kevin being taken away from the company and being in the position he was and being so like for real angry at the company and then just barking off about it like was the best thing that ever happened in his career because he could be Kevin then. And I think he's done a great job of just being Kevin, and people associate with him. And this is something I've told him, and I tell everybody. I said, the only thing I hate about Kevin sometimes is the fact that, what's that thing beeping at me?
You're fine. We're running low on tape. Keep going.
No, but I'm saying, with Kevin is, the people in the front row now feel that they can be wrestlers because of Kevin. Because they see Kevin as a normal person. And to me, I think that's a gift and a curse to Kevin. The only thing, there's a lot of things that separate them, but, the guy in the first row, the guy in the third row, they're going to be like, I look just like that fucking guy. I could do this. I feel just this way. I can say that. But the big thing with Kevin is his passion, his athleticism. Like, he's just that much different than a normal person, but he's close enough that it means that much when he says what he says. And that's why I think, like, his role is super important in what he's doing at this time. He's passionate about it. He loves the fucking company. But he hates it at the same time. There's that weird love-hate fucking relationship.
Well, we've talked about so many people. And, you've wrestled. It seems like just about everybody. If anybody, has the time to just look through the list of people you've wrestled and the companies you've worked for, there's just an enormous amount of people you've worked for, worked with, worked against, all sorts of things. Is there anybody that maybe I've left out that you're like, this guy was awesome? This is your shooting review. Maybe like, hey, you take a look at this guy, or this guy's the future, or somebody in Ring of Honor that's.
I don't see it. See, to me, I think everybody's the future if they really want to be, because wrestling is such an open fucking platform that I think people conform to what they feel wrestling is at this point. I think there's a lot of talented guys, and that's the shitty part is because there is so many talented guys.
But not enough spots.
No, not enough spots, but not enough people that really understand how to fit in these spots, because not a lot of people know their spot, and that is the big thing. Because there's a ton of people that I feel should have opportunities to make money in this business. I feel like I should make more money in this business, shit. But I think a lot of people just don't fully understand what wrestling is. People have, like, their idea of what they think wrestling is, and then they conform to it. And they wrestle as that. They don't try to build to that next level of being what they feel can add that much more value to wrestling. You know what I'm saying? They want to make this guy buying this tape happy. They don't think about the 200 people that are going to be there, 300 people, 400 people, million people watching. You know what I'm saying? They're like, well, he cheered for this guy and he did all this stuff, so we have to do the same. Like, I don't know. I think there's a ton of talented people out there. I think eventually it'll all go full circle. Everyone will make money, but...
Well, undoubtedly, Roderick Strong, you are a very talented person. And we've now come to a close of the shoot interview, and I thank you for your time and your honesty and getting to talk about your career and everything. Is there any parting thing you'd like to say to your fans who have purchased this tape?
Oh, man, just keep supporting me. I promise every time He's 101%. I can't tell you I give 110% because that's a little high, but wrestling is what you make of it. So just enjoy every tape you watch, and just at least applaud the guy working out there hard a little bit. Don't be so critical. Just have fun, because that's what I do when I watch wrestling. So, and support Ring of Honor, WWE, TNA, because hopefully I'll be making money everywhere. So, thank you.